I think I lost half my hair. You need to slow down. Meet my family. Sorry guys, I probably should make another video, but anyways, it's a torture. Trust me, it's torture. Good, I'm not trying to become a YouTuber. It's been a while since I did math. Do we need to make her see a doctor? Like, is she okay? Hello everyone, my name is Abhinaya Prabhakar. I am one of the SBA representatives for LL.M students. I wanted to make this video so, you know, even though we might not have classes or we meet online, I wanted to get this information to you. I promised you guys a presentation or some kind of meeting or workshop about the bar exam, especially to those of you that are preparing for the July bar exam. Most of you probably are, although some of you took the February bar. Congrats, that's a huge accomplishment. Even just taking the bar is a huge, you should be proud of yourself and give yourself, you know, a pat on the back and for all that hard work. So good job on that. And for those of you taking the July bar exam, you know, don't stress. I know stress is inevitable, and you're going to, but what's important to keep in mind is that you try to find a way to remain calm and, you know, not pull all your hair out as you're studying for the bar, because I think I lost half my hair as I was studying for the bar. I'm kidding. That's obviously an exaggeration, but I definitely lost some hair with all the stress. So I hope this is helpful. Again, I am no expert at all in bar exam taking. Only took it once, and it was in 2018. So again, I'm 2 years out. Oh my God, I can't believe it's already been 2 years. It feels like it was just yesterday. So it's so weird. But I took the July 2018 bar exam and got admitted into the bar in December of 2018. So again, my experience is a little bit different because I went to law school here. So please, you know, consider the differences as I'm giving you this advice. I'm going to take into account, I'm going to suggest some things just based on my experience seeing people study for it, my friends study for it, and all of that, and also taking into consideration that most of you are international that are studying for the exam. So first, I wanted to talk to you all about just the structure of the bar exam, basically, and also just general information. Again, I'm no expert at all. I'm just going based off of what I know. So please take it what you will, you know, take from it what you want, you know, and go with it. But don't rely on my words 100%. Okay. Again, as an attorney, I have to say that. But, you know, I hope, you know, you see, you know, where I'm coming from is my experience would be different than yours because I had 3 years of exposure to some of these laws. Anyways, so I'll start with that, and then I will give you some study tips for, you know, when to start, how to start, what I did, you know, and the resources that helped me. I kind of talked about this in the workshop that I did last semester, so a lot of it is going to be repetitive. Not repetitive, but like some of it is I'm going to repeat. It's always good to hear them, especially as the time is coming close for you to take the exam. So first, in terms of the exam itself, as you all might already know, it is 2 days. It used to be 3 days, but now it's 2 days. And I know most of you are taking either the New York bar exam, the California bar exam, or the Washington, D.C. bar exam. I don't know if you're taking any other bar. A couple of things is that the California bar exam is very different from New York or Washington, D.C. New York bar exam, Washington, D.C. bar exam are what do you call UBE states. So basically, if you take the exam, you're basically taking, if you're taking the New York bar exam, you're basically taking the UBE exam, the Unified Bar Exam. So based on the score that you receive and the cut score of each state, you can be admitted into that. You wouldn't have to take a complete other test like you would have to in California. So you'll basically essentially be studying for the same things if you're taking a UBE state. I'm not exactly sure how many states are UBE states. Not all states are UBE. California, for example, is definitely not UBE state. So it depends, and you know, you can find that easily. You can Google, you know, whatever state you're doing, and and say, is Colorado a UBE state? I know Texas is not a UBE state, although they might become a UBE state soon. So anyways, I'm just saying this for the folks who are taking the UBE states exam, to consider that, like, if you take this exam, you might be able to transfer your scores to some other states. That California is different. If you take the California, you will not be able to transfer the scores anywhere else, except there are 3 exceptions to this, especially pay attention to the folks that are taking the Washington, D.C. I didn't know about this until, like, I found out myself when I was taking the exam. After I took the exam and found out my score, is that there are 3 states in the United States where you can directly apply to admission to the bar without having to sit for an exam if your California MBE score, or just your MBE score, meets the cut score, for their state. So only 3 states allow this, and it's Minnesota, North Dakota, and Washington, D.C. So the Washington, D.C. cut score is the lowest compared to North Dakota and Minnesota. North Dakota is the highest. I think the cut score for Washington, D.C. is 133. Again, these are going in details. You can ask me questions about this, but it's a simple Google search. If you just search transfer, admission by motion through transfer of MBE scores, you'll find a lot of information. Only those 3 states do that. So technically, I have until July of this year, because they give you 2 years to do that, because your score is only valid for those 2 years. Again, those are only if you score really high on MBE and meet the cut scores. So again, there's that risk. If you really want to do Washington, D.C., it doesn't mean you'll automatically get it just because you did the MBE, California MBE. You have to score really well. So, be careful, like, think about that as well. So anyways, again, I'm kind of going over these fast because I don't want to make a really long video. I'm sorry, I have to remind myself to speak slower, just because I have this tendency to speak very fast. Just in general, I've had many judges to be like, you need to slow down because I don't know what language you're speaking. So anyways, I will definitely slow down. I'm so sorry if I was speaking really fast. But anyways, so that's that. 2 days, right? And this year, the New York bar exam is going to be July 28th and 29th. The California bar exam is going to be also 28 and 29. I'm not exactly sure Washington, D.C., I'm sorry, but I'm sure it's the same, similar in July. Most of my experience is going to be from California bar exam because I did not take the other bar exams. So there's that, and it's 2 days. The first day is usually the essay for both the New York and the California bar. New York bar exam in the morning, you get to do 2 MPTs, which are 90 minutes each. And then in the afternoon, you do 6 essays, basically, which are 30 minutes each of essays. So 6 times 30, 180 minutes. Yeah, it's been a while since I did math. And then the second days is always MBE. You'll get 100 questions, right? 3 hours, morning session, and then afternoon session, another 100 question, 3 hours. You get about 1.8 minutes each for each questions. Okay, I'll talk about this later, but it's so important to, like, practice being on time for both essays and MBEs. So focus on how much time you're allotted for each questions, and towards the end, when you start practicing exams, pay attention to how long you're taking for each of these questions. I'll get to those later. But there was something that came to my mind as I was saying about this. I don't know if some of you noticed in the beginning, I said in the morning you get to do MPTs. MPTs are performance test. Sorry, I should not be using abbreviations. I know this better, and I did, so I just wanted to correct it. These are performance tests, and I'm sure you've probably heard about them. It's mostly like they will give you everything that you need to know for that. They'll give you the packet, and then they will either ask you to do a memo, they'll ask you to do like a brief or a letter. So it's like it's to test, you know, how well you can, you know, like use the materials that you already have, and how well you can synthesize information into a format that is practically required. I wish law school like made you do more of these practical things, but they really don't. But anyways, so that's that. Oh, I just noticed. I was looking at my notes and I was talking and I realized my family pictures up there. Well, meet my family. Sorry guys. I probably should make another video, but anyways, I'm just gonna keep going. Okay, so another thing that came to my mind as I was talking, when I said you get to do MPTs. Before I start talking about tips, this is one thing it really helped me whenever I was struggling and whenever I wanted to throw my books or burn my books. I did Barbary, right? Well, I kind of shared accounts, but my main account was Barbary. And there was one, I think it was criminal law. The professor that was giving the lecture for criminal law, I would never forget this. At the end of a lecture, he talked about how you get to do this. And that really made an impact on me. And I think as I transition into the study aids session of this, I think that really helped me. Is that like this idea that you get to do this. You know, every time I wanted to complain, I realized, hold on, like I get to do this. So many people want to get into law school. So many people want to come to the United States, want to take LL.M, you know, want to take the bar exam and pass the bar exam. But oftentimes people don't get to do it for whatever reason, like they don't have the grades or they don't have the money or the resources, you know, or the support. So, you know, there's literally so many people who can die not die. That's a little bit of exaggeration. Sorry. Who really wants to be in our position, you know? And oftentimes I think we lose sight of that when we are really stressed about everything that we have to do. So I think it's really important to remind yourself that you get to do this. You have you have the privilege and the ability to be able to do this. You got here. You went to law school in your own country, and some of you might even be some of you are lawyers in your countries, and that is amazing. You know, not everyone gets to do that. That's a huge accomplishment. And same, you know, so I think reminding yourself that like whenever you start to complain or, you know, pull your hair out or want to burn your books, I had to tell myself, okay, hold on, Abby, you get to do this. Okay, so like you chose to do this and you get to do this, so stop complaining, you know? I mean, I still complained, but sometimes this reminder helped me to like not procrastinate as much. So that brings me to the next point of study tips. The first and foremost thing as you're studying for this bar exam is this is a mental game. Trust me. You will start to see that as soon as it gets to end of June, beginning of July. 100% it becomes a mental game. The only person that's a roadblock to yourself is you. So you really have to have a grasp of yourself and how you feel your emotions and your mentality, and really find techniques to address your stress in a way that's productive. And the reason I say this is that like the difference it makes for someone to pass the exam and for someone to fail the exam, it's not how smart someone is. It's not, it's not how intelligent someone is. It literally comes down to how much work you can do and how much you can remain, I don't like to use the word strong, but how much you have this, you know, realization that it's a mental game, and how much you just sit down and just do the work. You have to do the work. Like it doesn't say that I'm smarter than anyone for me to pass the bar, you know? I think what it says is that like you were able to kind of sit through the torture you know? It's a torture. Trust me, it's torture. Honestly, one of my mantras, there's two mantras I wrote in the board that was in my, that I saw every day I studied. One of them is suffer as much as you can for the next 2 months so you never have to go through this again. Unfortunately, I have to go through this again because I'm studying for the England bar exam. So that's going to be interesting. But I was right about the California bar exam. Again, it's not as easy as it sounds. I know that. But I think, you got to trust your ability. You got to trust yourself and have a good grasp of what makes you stressed. How do you respond to stress? And what helps you with stress? That is so important. I think that makes the difference. Because when you're not stressed, you're able to dedicate time to just sit down and do the work. So I think that's really important. The other quote, if anyone's interested or curious, is this is my all-time favorite. I've always had this everywhere. It's the greatest pleasure in this world is doing what people say you cannot do. Watch me. And an asterisk to people that includes yourself. Most of the times I realize it started off with other people telling me I can't do things, but as I become older and older, it's mostly me. That's a roadblock to myself. So oftentimes I have to remind myself that. Anyways, I can go off topic a lot. Okay, back to this. Oh God, I'm so sorry if this is a really long video. Please feel free to skip. 2x, 3x, whatever you need to do. I just hope this is at least a little bit helpful. The second most important thing with this is knowing how you study, right? Knowing yourself and keeping true to how you study. This is something I said in the last workshop too. Everyone has a different style of studying, right? So there's a way that got you through law school in your country. There's a way that got you through the bar exam in your country. Stick to that way. I bet you that it will be as effective because you know best how you study best. And you have to stick true to yourself and what your methods are. I think oftentimes it's really stressful. I don't know, how much you're in contact with the other students that are studying. I don't know if you're doing group study, but it's so stressful when you hear everyone else studying a certain way. So I remember someone would be like, oh, I took 3 practice essays today, in 3-4 months before the bar exam. And I'm nowhere close to even thinking about taking a practice exam because I needed to focus on understanding the concept before I practice. Some people do better by just practicing and just doing it, but that's not me. So you have to, if you hear all these things that people are doing, don't let that freak you out. People are just doing what works for them. So really think about what works for you. For me, teaching works. Teaching someone works. Hearing myself speak works. Flashcards, testing myself works. So what I did was, instead of doing flashcards because that takes a lot of time, what I did is I had my outlines and then I just created a list of questions. And it doesn't have to be by subject. It would just be random list of questions. I'd be like, name the elements of valid contract. Name the elements of false imprisonment. So I'll have all these different prompts. Sometimes I'd write them in sticky notes and I would just put them everywhere. I would put them, my mom still keeps finding them somewhere in the house, but I would literally put them in my car. When you open the car seat, the mirror, I would put them near my desk. I'd put them in the restroom. I'd put them in the mirror. I'd put them in, the fish tank in my house. I put them in all sorts of places. Even some places where I visit, for example, often there's this part of the gym that I always go to that not many people go to. It's just really random corner that I go to. So I would stick notes there, but nobody would remove it. So I was like, oh, okay, great. So I just keep them there. So the next time I went to go work out, I'll test myself that. And if I didn't know the answer to that prompt, then I'll just note it in my phone. And I would say, okay, I didn't know this. I have to review this. So the next day I would review those things that I didn't know. Again, these are things that work for me. I'm not saying these are proven strategies that's going to definitely work for you, but these are some different ways that you can study. I always taught I taught this I don't know, this might be a little too much information, but I taught stuffed animals in my room. I had some stuffed animals, so I would just like talk to the stuffed animal and I would teach them. I think my stuffed animal deserve okay, I still have stuffed animals, yes. Okay, don't judge. I think my stuffed animals can get like a honorary law degree because they know so much. I've taught them so much. Anyways, there was a time during my bar prep where my parents were very concerned for me because I was literally engaging with, like, for example, I'd be like, do you have any questions to the stuffed animals? And my parents would be like, is she okay? Like, do we need to do anything? Do we need to make her see a doctor? Like, is she okay? They were legitimately concerned for me, but it's just how I learned. It's just how I always learned. I learned by teaching, and being around people stressed me out. Being around people that were studying for the bar stressed me out. So I kind of confined myself, and so that hence the stuffed animal. So find your stuffed animal if teaching is what works for you. If you don't have a stuffed animal, boyfriend, girlfriend, random friend, wife, husband, you get the point. So that worked for me. So know yourself, right? First, mental game. So know how you stress and know how you respond to stress and what helps you, right? Prepare yourself for the mental game around. Have a game plan, right? And then second is knowing how you study and sticking to it. And then third is being organized. That is so important. I think for me, again, it might be different, based on your style. For me, I have to have everything organized. In terms of what I'm studying for the day. If I don't plan it out and if I just sit without any plan of what topic I'm going to study, I end up not studying. I end up studying little bits of pieces, but then at the end of the day, I don't retain a lot of the things that I need to retain. So be organized. Make a timeline. So I sent some of you who attended the workshop last time the calendar that I did for my bar exam, for when I was studying for the bar exam in July. What I would suggest for you is to start in April instead of May. So maybe end of March, April. I know it's going to be a tough time with finals and everything, but if you start early, you can kind of space it out. It doesn't have to be intense. No, I'm just saying end of March, April, so that it's easier for you to ease into it. Because again, I can't imagine. It was so hard for me studying for this exam, and I had 3 years of law school here. So I can only imagine. Actually, I'm kind of going through this with the bar exam, the England bar exam that I'm taking. So I understand. When I say before, I can't imagine what you're going through. Now that I look at all the topics I have to learn and how different they are, I just feel like I'm starting on ground zero, and it just is very overwhelming. So in some sense, I understand what you're going through, and I'm sorry that you're starting on ground zero, but there are things that you can definitely do that can help you start on, about the same playing field as JD students. So I would say starting early is one of them. Bar prep courses could be very helpful as well. Some of you might want to study by yourself, but I think if you're a foreigner, an attorney that's licensed in another country or a law student from another country, I think it might be very helpful to do a bar prep company because they kind of touch on the important parts that you need to know, and it kind of takes away the whole overwhelming feeling of going at it alone. But yeah, make a timeline. I would say start end of March. Kind of look over the subjects. I'm sure some of you are familiar with what the topics tested are. So look through the topics, skim through the books, see which one looks harder to you. Some of you might know from previous experience. Some of you are taking classes, so you already have an idea of what's hard, what's not. So I would suggest you kind of doing an inventory of rank the topics from most difficult to least difficult. This is going to be different for everyone because For some reason, for me, community property is difficult, but community property is so easy for some people. So, everyone's list is going to be different. So rank them from the most difficult to the least difficult, and whatever that you're most difficult, start with that. The reason why I'm saying start with that is, again, your plan is to ease into it, right? If you think you're stressed now, when it comes to May, June, July, it's going to be stressful. I'm sorry. I'm not saying this to freak you out, but it's just what's coming, right? It's good to know what's coming so you can be prepared. You're going to be very stressed, right? But if you start tackling the bigger subjects beforehand, the difficult subject beforehand, it might make things easier for when you're stressed. For example, in May or June, you might have a lot of things going on. Like if you start in March, right? You're going through the bigger topics. And then in May, when you have a lot of things going on, like graduation, family visiting, all this stuff, you can focus on the easier subjects then, and then go back to the hard subjects when you have full time to focus on it. I would really suggest you all to take time off from work. I really don't recommend working and studying. It's so tough. Again, you get to do this bar exam, and remember my mantra, suffer as much as you can the next 2-3 months so that you don't have to suffer through this ever again, right? So if you can take time off from work, please do that. I think that's really important. So that's next. In terms of how to structure, so I structured that way in terms of difficulty. And then towards June or July, what I did was I would have half-day subjects and one-day subject. Again, it's in my calendar that I sent last workshop, and I'll send it again this time. It talks about, my harder subjects were one-day subjects where I did all day that subject. And then my easier subjects, I kind of did half-day, or half-day and then a performance test, practice exams, things like that. So, see which one's good for you, which one's easy, which one can be full day and half day. And when July hits, like July 1st, it's good. I studied intensely. Like, it's not for everyone. I don't recommend it because some people can burn out. And I definitely did. And I had to take what I called burnt out walks. And I would just I would literally not be able to sit anymore. So I just closed my book really loudly. I'd be studying in this room with like 2 other people, and we're just studying, doing our own thing. But, we suffered together. There's something to be said about being in the company of other people that are suffering with you. You feel the camaraderie. So anyways, I would just close the book really loudly. Like it's something I couldn't help. It's just an automatic response because I was just so done, and I would just go for a walk. And I really had to reinvent how I take breaks. It started off with me, I would take breaks by watching videos, and it was so entertaining. It was amazing, but it didn't help me. It wasn't productive. I would forget everything I learned before. So really figuring out what is the best way you can take breaks, but also stay productive. So walking was amazing for me. I did a lot. I got a lot of steps in during bar prep. I think it's really important that you exercise during bar prep because exercise gives you endorphins, and endorphins make you happy, and happy people just don't kill themselves or their husbands. Anyone know where that is from? Legally Blonde. Anyways, sorry, I get sidetracked. Yeah, so that's important. Physical activity is important. Make sure you do that and time everything well. If you're someone who loves calendaring, that's great. Do that because I did that. I had color coded. I love color coding things. I don't know if you guys watch Parks and Recreation. I'm Leslie Knope. I have binders and Excel sheets and color-coded binders everywhere. My life is just a huge color-coded binders. Anyways, oh my god. So if you're someone who likes that, then get on Google Calendar. Google Calendar helped me so much. And I would, block time. I would break, I would even time out my breaks. And I would label my breaks as something that's like encouraging. Like I'd be like, you're so beautiful, you got this, things like that. That would be my break. So like as I'm working, how Google Calendar reminds you 10 minutes or 5 minutes before your appointment, and then I'll just get the message, be like, you're beautiful, take a break. So make it fun, because honestly it's so boring. Studying for the bar exam is the most boring thing you can ever do. So you gotta make it fun. I did a lot of things to make it fun, to be honest, and it really helped. It kind of lifted my spirits sometimes. So yeah. So organized. I'm sorry, my video was not working and I had to figure out something else. So being organized. Another thing that helped me is I organized my wrong answers on Google Docs. So basically I had this thing called Adaptabar, which is an external resource where you can practice questions, MBE questions. I don't work for Adaptabar, I don't get any benefits from doing this, but I just, it's something that's helpful to me, but you don't have to have it. It's not a lot of money. It's, for me, it was worth it. It was about $300, I believe, but there's a lot of practice questions, MBE questions on there, which is really helpful. So what I would do is I would, every time I got a question wrong, I had Google Docs for different subjects, and I would just, it started off with me writing about what answer I chose and why I chose it, and what the correct answer is and why it's the correct answer. But then as time went on, I got really lazy. I didn't have time to explain why I chose, it was a little bit too much, right? So I just copied pasted the answers and explanations from Adaptabar onto that Google Doc, and it was so helpful. I would just review it every time. So for example, if today I did torts and I practiced some questions on there. Whoa, I don't know what's happening to my video. But I guess as long as you can hear me, it's good. I'm not trying to become a YouTuber or anything. But anyways, hopefully you can hear me. I'll check it out later. Yeah, so I would organize that, and I would do torts that day, and I would do practice questions, and I would copy paste all my wrong answers into that Google Doc, and then the next day, before I start on contracts or whatever the subject for the day is, I'll review that Google Doc from torts, all the wrong answers, because it is so important that you don't just practice blindly, that you review it. So that helped me. And that brings me to my next point of practice. Practice makes perfect. I cannot stress you enough. Again, if you're someone who's just scared to start practicing until you have to know everything, I was like that in the beginning, and then there came a point where I had to tell myself, Abby, if you keep telling this self, you're never going to be able to do any practice exams, because I wanted to feel completely ready. I wanted to know everything before I can do a practice exam, because it's scary, right? When you start doing a practice exam and you have no idea what it's talking about. So I kind of feared that, and I wanted to avoid that, so I waited. But I wish I didn't, and I'm so glad at a certain point I cut myself. It's really good to be introspective, to reflect on how you're studying throughout the bar exam. I'm generally a very introspective person. I reflect a lot, maybe sometimes too much, but I think that made me realize, okay, I need to just do it. I need to just practice. And if I don't know, I don't know. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. I'm not in the actual bar exam. It's good that I would rather not know now than 2 weeks before the bar exam or a week before the bar exam. So it was really helpful that I just, let go of that fear. And even if I didn't know anything, I would just issue spot, right? So it was really helpful. Practice really makes everything perfect. So practice all your essays, make it timed. I think timed is very important. Maybe not in the beginning. Maybe in the beginning, see how many issues you can spot, but as time goes on, it's very important. The timed practices are very important, because sometimes it's not just about how much material you know, but how quickly you can kind of regurgitate the material that you studied, right? So timing is key. I would recommend that you guys type. I know some of you prefer writing, and I really do not recommend that. I'm sorry, but I think on a lot of aspects, typing is better. So maybe get into the habit of typing, because one thing that you can't control is that the graders that grade your essays, they might not be able to read what you're saying. Your handwriting could make sense to you, but not to them. So you got to take that into consideration, right? So I would recommend that you don't handwrite. But again, I'm no expert. What works for you works for you. So don't rely on my words. But yeah. So those are some tips that you can take. Again, if you want any ideas as to specific schedules that I used, I will send you my July one. All of the ones before the July one, I didn't do it in a Word format to share it with you all. It was all in my Google Calendar, and unfortunately I deleted and replaced those calendars once I passed the bar. I wish I didn't, because it feels nice to like see how much I worked. Speaking of how much I worked, it's gonna be hard. You're gonna have to suffer. I wanted to make this point, and I forgot when I was talking about the suffer as much as you can. When July hit, I literally studied from 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. I'm not joking. You don't have to be crazy like me. Like it's better to take breaks, to give yourself some time and be more productive rather than just sitting and staring at the book, right? And at times I was doing that from 7 to 11, right? There were 3 hours where I don't think it was productive for me, or like a chunk of time where I didn't think I was being productive. So I would suggest don't be like me, when try to find ways to study effectively. They always say work smart, not harder. But I don't like that. I make a tweak to that. Work smart, not just harder. Okay, so you gotta work hard too, but the emphasis is on working smart. So yeah, those are my study tips. If I think of more, I'll make sure to include it in the description. Again, I don't have a lot of time to go into detail or answer questions detailed. I'll respond as much as I can in the time that I have, but I'm studying for the British Bar exam, so it might be tough for me to get back to everyone's questions, but I'll try my best. And I hope this has been helpful. And on the day of exam, that is something that I will cover. I'll send another video out towards when it's time for the bar. Maybe in May I'll send one as a final. Well, I don't know if you guys can see me because this video has been kind of weird. But anyways, again, I'm not trying to be a YouTuber, so all that matters is you can hear my voice. Yeah, so I'll send that out. The main thing that you should start thinking about now in terms of test taking is booking your hotel rooms. Some people book their hotel rooms, some people don't. They just commute. I didn't want to spend the money to book hotel rooms, so my exam was in Ontario, and I lived in Orange County, which is an hour and a half away, and in traffic it could be way more. So what I did was a week before the exam, I would wake up at the time I needed to wake up for the bar exam, and I would commute to Ontario every single day of that week, and I would study in Ontario. And I would start studying exactly at the time the bar exam starts, so that I understand what the traffic is, so that, I'm prepared when the time comes for the bar exam, especially since I knew that I wasn't doing a hotel. So that is something to think about. Anyways, I hope this helped. Hopefully I didn't miss a lot. I'm sorry that I rambled. I'm sorry that I spoke really quickly, but I really hope this helps a little bit. Please, please don't stress. I know it's hard. You're going to stress, but try to turn that stress into motivation, because you're going to need that a lot for the bar exam. Make it a good kind of stress, the kind of stress that motivates you rather than the kind of stress that depresses you. You know what I mean? It's a mental health. It's a mental game. So please take care of yourself. That is so important. Be kind to one another, help each other out. It's so easy to see everyone as a competition, but honestly, it's the people that help each other out that ends up making it in my and being happy and become happy in my personal opinion, humble opinion. So I would rather do this together and help each other out than to like, compete, and because you get what you receive. I mean, you get what you give, right? You receive what you get, what you give. Oh my God, I just butchered that so much. You get what you give. So it's important that you help each other out and you're be kind to yourself and to each other. Take care, guys. I wish you all